All right, welcome everybody. We are going to start a brand new lesson, and if you've been with me a while, you know, Miss Kate, this is Faith Ringgold. You've taught us this before. She's reading the book The Tar Beach, and I want you to know this because this new artist is going to bring up stuff that made me think of Faith Ringgold. And so I just want to share with you this little part of this story, and then we are going to get started.
My name is Faith Ringgold.
Maybe.
Daddy said that the George Washington Bridge is the longest and most beautiful bridge in the world, and that it opened in 1931 on the very day I was born. Daddy worked on that bridge, hoisting cables. Since then, I've wanted that bridge to be mine. Now I have claimed it. All I had to do was fly over it for it to be mine forever. I can wear it like a giant diamond necklace.
All right, remember this thought right here as we learn about our new artist. She is live, she is real, she is in person. Her art is at Detroit Institute of Art. And so Miss K was able to get this document, and they asked if I wanted it. I said, oh yes, I want to share it with my students before we go to the DIA. So let me tell you, since our DPSCD art show is coming up at the DIA, they asked if we wanted a copy about this info about Tiff Massey. I accepted. As I made you a PowerPoint showing lots of you, you will see if you join us at the DIA, all of us teachers, on April 29th. Here is our motivation to learn about an artist we're going to see her work of. It's about to be taken down, and why this artist does what she does. It is my hope as an art teacher to have a light bulb in your brilliant mind go off as you experience this current real-life learning lesson. Enjoy. I will need 4 speakers today, so raise your hand so I don't have to read all of it. And I can pause this if that's possible. So again, her name is Tiff Massey, and we see it's 7 Mile and Livernois, which is 2 roads. We're going to find out more. And so I first ask you, what do you think a solo exhibition is? Solo. What do you think that is? How is it different from Miss K's students having an artwork and turning into an art show? And so I want you to write that in the chat. And then also an artwork, students that are making, usually you only turn in 1 or 1 gets accepted. So that is the hint to you. Let's take a look and see what Tiff Massey, who this person is. All right, here we go. And it says, Detroiter becomes youngest Black artist to have solo exhibition. Let's see if they answer that question.
Now, we all know Detroit is a mecca for creativity. And in celebration of Black culture during Black History Month, I had the pleasure of working with Tiff Massey. She's an artist born and raised right here in the Motor City whose work is making waves all around the country. And soon, she'll be the youngest Black artist to ever have their own exhibition at the Detroit Institute of Arts.
What up, though? My name is Tiff Massey.
The Tiff Massey is a multifaceted, interdisciplinary artist based in the city of Detroit, using wood, metal, fabric, and music as a form of expression and communication.
If you show me how to do something once, I can replicate it I can build it, I can make it.
Massey has been making masterpieces in the city and beyond for more than a decade. Her latest work will be unveiled at the DIA in May, making her the youngest Black artist to ever have their own exhibition. Its name will be 7 Mile in Livernois, which is where she grew up, and it's also known as the Avenue of Fashion. Detroit's unique style, a constant feed of inspiration.
In everything that we do, there's a lot of beauty in it. How we adorn ourselves, our language, our food.
And our history, with stories woven into every piece, like this series entitled Some Fabrics Hold Weight.
What I found was gingham originally was utilized as a pattern to clothe the enslaved on plantations so they can be seen in the fields.
Reclaiming the material, Massey replaces the white squares with a kente cloth, which is a traditional African fabric.
This is about paying homage to little Black girls, and when we get our hair done, this is our first adornment.
This installation is called I Remember Way Back When. And yes, I remember. Baby Kiera rocked those barrettes faithfully. But that's the beauty of Massey's work. It triggers.
And so I also want to know, as that reporter just proudly shared her pictures with her barrettes in her hair, what is something that gives you pride, gives you a self-identity that you always have with you? Please write that in the private chat. Just say, my self-identity is my favorite shirt, or my self-identity is my headphones, or my phone, or my video game, or just tell me something that you always, or your parents are like, yeah, you always are eating that food, or you're always, what is it that you always got to have right now? I want to know from you.
Nostalgia pushes the needle forward while highlighting significant cultural references.
A sister definitely has been working hard.
And it's paying off.
All right. And so this article that is on slide 2, it just continues to say basically the same thing that we just learned about. I don't want to repeat myself. But let's go ahead and find out this book that was given to me. I'm going to make it bigger. All right. And some friends have told me that it's hard to see some of them. Well, let's just make it bigger like this then. And like this. All right. Since it's not going to make itself big. Tiff Massey. And this is a foreword, and a foreword is usually a good write-up about what the book is about. So the owner of, or the president of the DIA is writing this. Tiff Massey, 7 Mile in Livernois at the Detroit Institute of Arts, presents new and recent work by the Detroit-born artist Tiff Massey. This significant project connects the DIA with Detroit's vibrant community and challenges our museum to engage with the city in exciting and new ways. Walking through the DIA's galleries, surrounded by Tiff's powerful sculptures, is a radically emotional experience that reflects the artist's deep reverence for Detroit's history and culture. Now, if you don't remember what a sculpture is, write down the word. You'll see it sitting here for a while. If there are any words that you really struggle with, I want you to still hear the whole paragraph in context. I don't want to stop like I'm stopping right now because it sort of ruins the fluency, but we will come back to those. So just write down the words that you struggle with understanding, okay? And send them to me in the private chat. And just say, IDK, these words, all right? And hopefully you could push it beyond and go Google them and then send me the answer to your question, and I will give you some points for your participation for that day. All right, let's keep it going. Walking through DIA's galleries surrounded by Tiff's radically emotional experience that reflects the artist's deep reverence for Detroit's history and culture. Detroit is a city known for innovation and dreaming big, and this exhibition represents the city's ambition and spirit at the highest level. Tiff Massey, 7 Mile Livernois, is a project by and for Detroit, and we thank Detroit community for the outpouring of engagement and support this exhibition has already received across the city and Tri-County area. As an inaugural contemporary project in the museum's newly dedicated France and Kenneth Eisenberg and Family Wing, this exhibition signals the DIA's renewed engagement with the arts, artists, and communities of today. We offer our sincere gratitude to our exhibition sponsors who enabled us to organize the museum's ambitious show for a Detroit artist in its history. So basically, this man is thankful that people put money into it and supported his place. Thank you for the generous lead supporters at 7 Mile, and he lists them, and the Friends of African American Art. I would like to thank Katie, Associate Curator of Contemporary Art, she's somebody that works there, for her thoughtful and committed work bringing this show to the DIA. This exhibition would not have been possible without the DIA's extraordinary staff, and I would like to acknowledge many colleagues who collaborated on this exhibition, including the exhibition's curatorial, interpretation, conservation, museum collections management, and registration team. So he's thanking everybody that works with him. We thank Tiff for entrusting the DIA with this exhibition and for the extraordinary dedication and creativity she brought to her work on this transformational show. From the new work created specifically for the exhibition to the series of the dynamic programs to engage the Detroit community, the impact of this project will be felt long after the exhibition has ended. Tiff, this exhibition is a tribute to your contributions to the art and life of our city, and I can say without hesitation that there is no other place I would rather see Tiff Massey, 7 Mile Livernois, than at the DIA. Salvador Salord Pons, Director, President, and CEO of Detroit Institute of Art. So let's get right into it. Again, if you want to read this, please just unmute. This is not letting me. So the title of this by Katie is Tiff Massey's Metalwork. Let me go ahead and make this bigger so hopefully you can see it a little better as we read. Tiff Massey creates installations, public art, and wearable sculptures inspired by adornment. Born in Detroit, Massey trained as a jeweler and was the first Black woman to graduate with a degree in metalsmithing from Cranbrook Academy of Art in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Initially creating jewelry for the body, Massey scales jewelry up to architectural size, so gigantic, filling up a room, constructing sculptures that celebrate Detroit's evolving neighborhoods and the history of Black American and West and Central African diasporic cultures and styles. Inspired by the jewelry that she makes for herself and others, Massey has long considered how practices of adornment shape our sense of self-definition, identity, and belonging, like those hair barrettes she made into wall decorations. In recent years, her metalwork has expanded to an investigation of how adornment shapes our relationship to urban spaces, celebrating adornment's power in forging a sense of self and forming community ties. Her sculptures are an invitation to recognize and embrace our interconnectedness. 7 Mile Livernois is an intervention into the museum's contemporary galleries that works to reimagine museum space and the museum's relationship to the city of Detroit. Occupying 4 galleries, that's 4 big rooms, friends, within the Detroit Institute of Art, Francis and Kenneth Eisenberg and Family Wing, this shows is the most ambitious project the DIA has organized for the artists from Detroit and Massey's largest museum exhibition to date. The museum's commissioned Massey, so said, hey, Massey, will you do this for our building? And she said yes. To create 4 new sculptures for this exhibition, several of which are in direct dialogue with the museum's architectural history. These are alongside 6 works from Massey's archive, so her stash of other artwork she has, and works by 2 other artists, which is Louise Nevelson, which I was taught when Miss Kay was growing up, from the DIA's collection. Painting the walls of the galleries black, 7 Mile in Livernois envisions how an aesthetic that centers Black experience and the culture and creativity of the city of Detroit might be truly seen and celebrated at the DIA. In the words of Detroit writer and cultural historian Marcia Music, 7 Mile in Livernois is an articulation of the grandeur and sheer magnificence of Detroit itself that calls forth the city beyond the museum's walls. All right, so here is where she grew up. A woman crosses 7 Mile at the corner with Livernois. All right, it is a picture of photography, and so it is a work of art, this photo. Avenue of Fashion, she calls it, and it was in the newspaper in 1992. All right, shaping community. 7 Mile in Livernois refers to the neighborhood at the heart of Detroit's Black business district, widely known as, let's see if this works. Nope. Oh, I knew it. Sorry. Widely known as the Avenue at Fashion. Black Detroiters claimed the intersection of 7 Mile and Livernois as the center for Black fashion. The wake of 1967 Detroit rebellion, after white retailers and shoppers largely abandoned the area in favor of suburban shopping malls. So they're saying the white people went to the malls and the Black people mostly stayed there and had their own little shops, jewelry shops, hair shops, clothing shops. All right. Since then, this neighborhood on the city's west side has had, sorry, friends, let's turn that off. The highest concentration of Black retailers in the Detroit metro area, with many jewelry, hair, and clothing shops. As Music has explained, 7 Mile in Livernois represents the push of Black Detroit after the bounds of segregation were broken and were able to move more freely into the residential areas in the city. It is a profound junction. Massey's artistic practice has been deeply shaped by histories of urbanism in Detroit, from white divestment in the city in the wake of the Detroit Rebellion and her grandma being the first Black real estate broker in Detroit. That means, to me, I'm thinking grandma is helping her, because the materials she needs to do this art project are expensive. All right. In dialogue, grandma was the first real estate broker in Detroit to the more recent impact of gentrification, increasing redevelopment. Massey's work has come to encompass urban planning, economic advancement, and placemaking. Massey's community work extends her practice beyond museums and into the realm of public art. All right, so she is, I want to say something, but not yet. Modeling how community development can come from within neighborhoods, be directed towards the needs of existing residents, and help build Black investment and agency in Detroit. So just building it up, making Detroit look great. The area of 7 Mile in Livernois is not just a cultural touchstone for Massey, it's also where she grew up, and the site of the building Massey has bought and renovated into a new community-centered art space, merging her sculptural practice with active neighborhood building. Massey describes the exhibition's title, 7 Mile in Livernois, as a call to Blackness, our Detroit nativeness and essence. It's about local nurturing, adornment, and how we like to stunt. In 2022, she hosted her first annual What Up Doe Fest, a West Side neighborhood convening including pop-ups for local Black businesses, an exhibition of other local artists' work, and day-long lineup of musicians and DJs. In the future, she plans to build an open metal working studio, nurturing the next generation of Detroit metalsmiths. So you might not even be understanding what this is, but if you like to work with metal, she's opening up this place to you so you could go there, I'm talking to you, and check it out and try it. Scaling sculpture. Massey began her career as a jeweler, but she soon rejected the idea of creating art that could be possessed and worn by only one person. Transitioning from making jewelry to adorn the body to creating large-scale artworks like a necklace that fills the room. 4 early works can be seen at 7 Mile, Livernois. She modeled her own first sizable steel sculpture, which is called Facet, and you can see all the titles of the artworks are in a italic font on diamond-shaped linked chain bracelet of her own design. Created in 2010, this experimental sculpture has been shown within museum galleries as well as outdoors. Okay, so this bracelet has gone from indoor in the nice museum where it's covered and protected, but the steel sculpture is brown and patina, registers the work's journey. So it shows that it's been in the preciousness of the museum to the resilience required of public art. So it's outside, it's getting, aged. Presented in a different configuration each time. Like, look at your bracelet, look at your necklace if you have one. If you pick it up and put it down, it doesn't lay down the same way every time. And that is the same with this artwork called Facet. The 8 links are co-joined like a bracelet, but not fixed into place. By design, Facet is a shapeshifter constructed to move across contrasting spaces and environments. This is cool. This is the name of another artwork she has. 39 Reasons I'm Not Playing. Massey joins together 39 brass links. So just imagine a little circle. And you know how when we were kids, maybe you made paper circles. So take like a long skinny rectangle and then twirl it, make it like a circle. And then just before you put the circle in, you take another long rectangle and make it a circle link chain. And teachers usually did this to try to make you guys behave and be good. And your link gets to go to the ground and you get like dessert or something. Made when Massey was 39 years old, each of the 39 links is a stunt, a bold assertion of her own worth and value. Her work's merit as a sculpture and her ability to occupy museum spaces through the skill of her craft. Documenting Massey's journey of artistic development, the work's title warns us not to question her importance as an artist. In this and many other artworks, Massey leaves her own labor visible, deliberately showing every seam and solder line. Let me stop right there in case Ms. K taught a jewelry design class in a very expensive place near Columbus, Ohio. And so the head art teacher would say, go buy some silver, go buy some brass. Like, this is metal. This is like not cheap. And so the students would then make rings. Ms. K was able to make it out of candle wax, and then you carve your ring exactly how you want it out of wax and melt the wax, and then you put it in this machine, and then the wax gets heated up and blown out at the same time silver replaces it. So I had like a vine ring. And so sometimes though, that's one way of doing jewelry. Another way, and if it's interesting, let me know. Another way is just, again, matching that long, skinny rectangle and wrapping it around your finger. It's a little tiny one, and it's made of metal. And then when those two pieces merge, okay, when the rectangle merges around your finger to form a ring, you have to use this a soldering iron, soldering glue, and it glues it together. So the solder is like the glue. And when you do it, it's really bumpy and doesn't look very nice where you weld those two pieces together. And usually, if you're making a ring for a store, you then have to take sandpaper and then you have to take a buffer and buff it so it's shiny smooth and you can't see where the seam is, where the line is. And so she's saying she leaves them visible, deliberately showing basically the pain she has gone through to get to this point. Each link on the chain highlights the power and the presence of Massey's hand, insisting that her work be seen and recognized. Massey made this piece in response to the often exclusionary nature of the art world, where she has felt, both black as a black woman and an artist who spans so-called fine art and craft, constantly tasked to justify her presence in institutional spaces. Massey's Everyday Arsenal, another artwork, similarly asserts jewelry as a kind of armor, a powerful form of self-preservation connected to culture, history, and place. And that is on page 25, which we will see later. Like Facet, Massey modeled each in 9 sculptures in Everyday Arsenal on her own ring designs. So she based them off her own rings, and she made them bigger. She named each ring sculpture for a different Detroit woman who has played a pivotal role in the city's recent history, linking jewelry's role as a marker of history with the more activist forms of community building. Massey's Fulani, another artwork title, deepens her investigation of jewelry's connection to heritage and history, drawing parallels between contemporary cultural expression in Detroit and forms of adornment in African culture. All right, so just like Faith Ringgold, who we saw there at first, she said, I have been taught in America, therefore I usually got taught the European artists like Ms. Kay has been. And she says, I combine that knowledge with my African knowledge. So she went to Africa and learned about Africa, much in the same that this Tiff Massey went to I take that back. I don't know if she's been to Africa, but she researches Africa. This pair of sandblasted steel earrings, for example, references jewelry forms worn by Fula women in North, Central, and South Africa, a marker of wealth and social status, as well as the skill of the maker. Fulani earrings. Okay, so Fulani are the earrings that are traditional, forged by a single bar of gold by this Fula women in North, Central, and South Africa. All 4 of these works are part of Massey's ongoing jewelry box installation, an evolving arsenal of adornment that speaks to jewelry's bonds to people, place, and community. Surrounded by mirrored walls, the sculptures in Massey's jewelry box merge with the reflections in the surrounding room, creating linkages across time and space and unexpected connections between people. So when you have a mirror, it makes the room look bigger. And so if you ever have a room and you wall it with all mirrors, it's going to look huge. As well as her point is she wants to connect it to the past and connect it to the present. That's why she used a mirror. This interaction activates the entire lineage, all right, of community and family-based knowledge connected to contemporary adornment in Detroit. As Massey has said, jewelry is a memento, a relic, a history, adornment like those hairbands, and how it was introduced to me was always a stunt, and how we are keeping our legacy alive. All right, keeping it going. I just wonder if Tiff read this book as a kid, The Tar Beach. All right, so let me put this towards the back. All right, let me get this out of the way. And again, friends, if you want to read, please unmute and choose to read or read along with me. That's fine too. Constructing Space, another of Massey's sculptural installation called What Up Doe, page 26, was commissioned specifically for the DIA at 15,000 pounds. Wow, just that's another, it just is like, okay, this little girl can't just lift that up. What Up Doe is the largest sculpture Massey has ever made. It is created from stainless steel architectural beams, the kind more typically used to shore up skyscrapers and reinforce building infrastructures, like I was saying with the bridge from Faith Ringgold's dad. Constructed from 42 individual links, Massey worked with Detroit-based fabricator Logan Mary. So she didn't physically do this all herself. Like this man helped her, or maybe it's a girl, to weld steel girders into the giant chain necklace. Look at that, friends. That's just like what Faith said. What Up Doe is a cityscape in miniature, a collection of skyscrapers reduced to a more human scale. Bisecting the wall of the gallery, the work occupies the entirety of the largest gallery room, which is this family that must have put a lot of money in because they keep saying it, and extends outward into the adjacent hallway. Intervening into the museum's architecture, What Up Doe cuts through an existing wall to point towards an open window and city beyond museum walls. What Up Doe connects Detroit to the DIA as well as linking to the DIA to Detroit. The sculpture's title refers to Detroit's unique greeting, What Up Doe? A warm, how's it going, and communal expression of care. As in Massey's earlier work, What Up Doe's conjoined links represent connections across generations and among diverse neighborhoods and communities through the language of jewelry design. Massey wants each person that moves through her What Up Doe installation to feel that they are metaphorically wearing the necklace, part of a shared experience with all of the other people in the gallery. If jewelry is often a marker of individual status, What Up Doe instead represents true wealth as an abundance of communal connection. The work shifts attention away from Detroit's slew of newly development projects and ever higher skyscrapers and toward already existing networks of community care. Massey created her wall installation called I Got Bricks from 147 individually steel bricks. Unlike those used in architecture, Massey's bricks are not flat, but instead welded with angled corners, like with the soldering tool. And soldering tool looks sort of like a curling iron, if you know what that looks like. Much like faceted gemstones set into a ring or bracelet. Many of the bricks are made from polished stainless steel that catches people's reflections as they walk by and engage with the work. People see themselves reflected in architecture, and that reminds me of a Jim Dine metallic balloon sculpture. He did this dog balloon sculpture, and it is sitting by the New York Federal Reserve. And it's just really shiny, and I took a picture of myself in it, just like people probably do this with hers. So check it out if you see it. See themselves reflected in the architecture. I Got Bricks references and let me stop right there and say architecture of Detroit is amazing, friends. We did a deep dive, and I have PowerPoints of architecture in Detroit. If you like buildings, please ask me about it. I'm not going to do it this year, but it is just the amount of detail and work that these people put in. Even here at the Northern School, you look and there's like reliefs, and like sometimes there's sculptures in front of buildings like there are here, and people just really cared about, they wanted people to come inside and see, and that's why they the Art Deco building of, I can't think of it, but the I can't say the word, but anyway, the kind of building that you can't say the title in Detroit is the one I'm thinking of. But the design and the care that they decorated, which each it's not a Dollar General, friends. A Dollar General is a cube building. People don't care. They made it cheaply. They didn't care about you. They just wanted you to go in and get your stuff and get out. And so this obviously is going back and saying, no, we need to honor Detroit and this stuff. So let's keep going. Architecture. I got bricks references the gold bricks as a symbol of wealth and investment, but her worth is measured not in hard assets such as gold bricks or the physical structures and buildings, but through the people that constitute the community. Describing I Got Bricks, Massey has said, Detroit, I'm designing for us, so we can see ourselves in the many facets of these gems. This represents us, building something together. So she's like I'm helping the community of Detroit out by teaching you guys about art so you can go forth, and maybe some of you, I expect one person this year to maybe become an artist, while 10 of you are going to remember this and always have art as a hobby. That's all I expect. But really, as long as I've touched that one person, then it matters to me, and I'm giving back to the community. And that's what she's doing. She's giving back to the community. The exhibition's title, 7 Mile in Livernois, refers to an intersection in the city often seen at an aesthetic and cultural remove from the DIA's neoclassical architecture. So the building DIA is neoclassical style. If you want to Google it, you'll see what I'm talking about. And white marble facade. What Up Doe brings the museum and its architecture into conversation with Deep Black Detroit, forming new junctures between the museum and the surrounding city. Moving from a communal to the personal, portraits Massey shot at the DIA visually connect her own adornment, the earrings she wears in her hair, and the gold necklaces and glasses gifted to her by her late father, with an and so then you understand why she's wearing old-style glasses. So she's very sentimental. With the ornate 19th century gate installed at the DIA's Great Hall, Figure 3. Like her sculptures, this portrait contrasts but also connects two very different visions of Detroit's aesthetics and style. Matching the museum scale and grandness, What Up Doe is a necklace for the museum, but it is also a rejoinder to the museum. It demands that the museum see and support the creative spirit of the city. In Massey's work, Detroit itself is a stunt, the museum's greatest resource, and a necklace it should wear proudly. Honoring adornment, and again, adornment is the necklace you wear, the bracelets you wear, the maybe even shirt you wear, what you wear. Massey has been encountering 2 or more historical stunts by Louise Nevelson and Donald Judd, both created in the late 1960s, which Louise is at the end of this PowerPoint. Deeply inspired by such work, so she liked an artist. And this is what I hope to do for you, is that I just want you to love one artist that you always can know about. And for this was Louise Nevelson for Tiff. Massey's influence extend from minimalist sculpture by artists such as Judd and Nevelson, and minimalist means simple, square. Not much there, square, all right? And she liked Rothko, a painting of a square, okay? To historical African art. So she's connecting 1980s hip-hop culture and urban design. In 7 Mile in Livernois, Massey finds in Nevelson and Judd sculptures a range of additional meanings that unlock new perspective on their similarly large-scale works. Through unexpected connections to her own practice, Massey highlights the labor bodies and histories, often absent from the minimalist sculpture of the 1960s, which that's when the minimalist time period style was made, art style. 1960s. Like Massey, Louise Nevelson's art has been profoundly shaped by narratives of adornment and urban transformation. I even invite you to do a project like this at the end. Nevelson created homage to the world from wood scraps scavenged by the streets of New York City in the 1960s, fitting modular wooden boxes with molds and felt bowler hats discarded on the street after a factory on Bowery Street went out of business. So bowler hats, if you ever look up Rene Magritte, maybe you like surrealism, they're wearing bowler hats. He wears them a lot. Nevelson's work reflects the fundamental societal shifts that transformed cities, as well as styles of dress during the 1960s, decreasing demand for items such as bowler hats as the demographics of cities began to rapidly shift. Nevelson made her first modular wood assemblage in the late 1950s, just as she was being forced out of her 5-story brownstone in New York to make way for urban renewal program, the echo of what transpired in Detroit during the same period. Nevelson would have likely been attuned to the connections between shifting fashion and urban transformation. She was known amongst her fellow artists as the Hat, in homage to her bold boundary crossing style. Nevelson's work, however, ignore that please, frequently disguised these connections. Let me make sure I'm on the right page. Yes. We're talking about Nevelson, an artist from the 1960s, and she likes hats. Frequently disguised these connections to contemporary politics and urban history. She called her sculptures environments and often painted them black, obscuring her origins of her materials. In 7 Mile, Livernois, Massey presents her wall sculpture, I've Got Bundles and I've Got Flawed Out Green. Okay, I got flued out. Page 34 and 35, just look for the green. Alongside Nevelson's homage to the world. So she is lucky. She has her art next to someone that she envied. Massey's work shares Nevelson's modular construction, architectural scale, so it's big, and what Massey describes as Nevelson's interest in both the form and the color black. I've Got Bundles and I Got Flued Out honors Detroit's status as the hair capital of the world, recognizing black hairstyling as an art form. The gallery goes from bowler hats to braids, celebrating the black city that rose in Detroit in the wake of the white flight, urban rebellion, and shuttered factories. That means going out of business. To create I've Got Bundles and I Got Flued Out Green, Massey wove kalan, a type of synthetic hair, into the large grid of the painted black canvases, creating 54 unique art styles in collaboration with the hair artist Mo Alade. Okay, so she's asking for her help now. Fusing the art of painting with hairstyling. I've Got Bundles and I Got Flued Out interrogates why, in a city known as the black hair capitalist, hair work is rarely seen in regional museums and celebrated as its own art more generally. All right, so Tiara, I think you were the one that said hair, or no, it was Natalie. The work placed tribute to the networks of beauty salons that are among the city's most vital and long-withstanding black-owned businesses. Contrasting with all black finish of Nevelson's adjacent work, Massey wove her hairstyles in brilliant shades of green, a celebration of black life that contrasts with Nevelson's more formal exploration of the color black. In the 1960s, Donald Judd was among the first artists to experiment with making art out of industrial materials like steel and plexiglass. So Massey was like, oh, I can use that, which are more commonly associated with factory production. His Untitled, that's the title of his art, is among a large group of wall sculptures the artist made throughout his career, often referred to as stacks. And let me tell you, friends, while some art is called untitled, it's usually titled that because it was never given a title. So I ask you to always title your art if you can. Composed of identical modular components, these wall sculptures typically span floor to ceiling, each unit stacked on top of another and cantilevered from the form. These works owe their looks and logic to the factory. The labor of their making is largely absent. And as I read this, I think of Diego Rivera, who toured Henry Ford's car factory and was hired to paint on the DIA's walls in a mural. And so make sure if you're going to check that out. The labor of their making is largely absent, as in any visible sign of the artist's hand. Through these works, and maybe that's exactly why Tiff decided to leave where she soldered the pieces, because if it's absent, it's not showing your hard work, Through these works, or it's forgotten. It is, you can see it's hard work. Jude sought to explore the potential of space, material, and form, and as he phrased it, to make the work so strong and material that it can only assert itself. Gone is context and history, and in its place is the power of pure form and color. In this case, green, playing off the white walls of the museum gallery. In Baby Bling, Massey brings the material aspects of Judd's minimalism into conversation with her own work and history. Baby Bling transforms a familiar childhood hair accessory, hair-colored hair elastics, into a large steel and brass wall sculpture, increasing their size so they occupy the space on par with their importance in the childhoods of many. So just imagine, girls, if you wore little hairbands as a kid. I know I even did wear these, and you will see them to put up your ponytails, and I just loved them. And so she's saying that they were an important part of our self-identity. Baby Bling shares Judd's interest in industrial materials and manufacture. Like Judd's Untitled, Massey's Baby Bling is also modular and surreal and hangs as if it's hovering off the wall. Massey, however, finds within Judd's forms and materials far more personal meanings, calling forth the power of family and care. So just as they're saying, I want you to find a personal meaning. I don't want you to just go through here and be like, oh, look at that. Well, anybody could do that. But there's a meaning behind it. And hopefully you are able to find some meaning in Tiff Massey's art. For Massey, the work embodies the feeling we all have when we're getting our hair done. Our hours of labor, mostly all Black women, involved in braiding hair. And I have actually had an art project. It can be like, if you don't have string, braid some hair. Send me a picture of the braided hair. Treating art itself as an act of nurture. Baby Bling stands for forms of artistic labor, not often represented in art museums. Instead of making labor invisible, Baby Bling celebrates the often unseen work of Black women and the care passed down across generations through the braiding of hair. Baby Bling, as Massey has said, takes you back to those first jewels, the hair ties and twists, and the strong hands that tie them. 7 Mile in Livernois is an exhibition by and for Black Detroit, a testament, as the Detroit art historian and critic Charles Moore writes, to the Black talent in Michigan's most populous city. Through the language of jewelry and sculpture, Tiff Massey amplifies Detroit's own art history at the DIA, honoring adornment as a creative response to the city's continual transformation. All right, and then they have the notes. All right, and then we go through here. I'm going to read it, but I do hope that students read her part, and then I'll read the part of person in conversation with Tiff Massey. And so here is how the conversation with her went down. Dream is the name of the person asking the question. And she says, I'm so honored to be in conversation with the great Tiff Massey. Tiff says, what up, Doe? I'm honored to be in conversation with the great Dream Hampton. Dream says, what up, Doe? Our greeting from the African nation of Detroit here in the state of Michigan. Can you talk about what it's like to be someone who works with metal, a metalsmith? And friends, I ask you to forward, if you like this sound, what up, Doe? If you haven't used it before, go ahead and use it, because obviously it is a Detroit thing. And if it's not a Detroit thing, we'll make it more of a Detroit thing. All right. Tiff says, it's great to be able to articulate my ideas and translate them through metal. Growing up, I don't think that I ever imagined that I would be making metal sculpture at this scale. The Dream says, and to work with metal is to work with fire. What's your relationship to fire and to that element? As a child, were you drawn to fire? She says, I went to Mercy High School in Farmington Hills, so that was the first time I was exposed to the torch. And that's like soldering iron too. I think I got really smitten by it. I remember that some of my first objects were best friend rings and things like that. And my first jewelry teacher was definitely influential. She saw there was something in me and always pushed me. And I would have these grand ideas. She would actually say, nah, you can't do that. She actually came to my opening at the DIA in May, and I just lost it. I just completely lost it, because she's definitely the reason I'm sitting here today outside my mama. Dream says, I love that. So jewelry, you've talked about jewelry as an adornment, but what are your first relationships to jewelry? Is it watching your mother put them on? Can you talk about being a kid in the 1980s and 90s in Detroit? And so Ms. K, she must be the same age as me, because I was a kid in the 80s. Tiff says, my dad rode them Cadillacs. My dad owned a funeral home, so we had a Cadillac too. So the promo for the DIA exhibition was definitely giving homage to my parents, which is figure 4. And how they adorn themselves has definitely been influential, not only to how I adorn myself, but also to the ideas that I have within the works. All right. Tiff Massey in front of the Detroit Museum of Art. Here she is. Let's keep it going. And to study metalsmithing and jewelry and not see any reflections of yourself. You only see a reflection of yourself when somebody writes about you. But then you see yourself everywhere you go in Detroit. Detroiters, when we step outside, we want people to see it. We want people to see us and see that, and that has left a tremendous impression on me. All right. So Dream says, can you talk about that as relates to Black dignity? This question of being seen, of fighting back against erasure. We talk about it in terms of luxury and just painting ourselves quite vividly in the public space so as not to be erased. Do you make those connections at all? We could probably have that conversation, Tiff says, with someone like James Van Der Z, who is a well-known photographer, who would definitely have this background. Black folks heavily adorned in furs and things. Can you talk about hip-hop boldness and scale in your work? It started with growing up in the 80s and 90s and having siblings who were definitely impacted by the culture. I remember seeing the 2-finger rings, but also the lucite rings from back in the day and the different bands of color. That has been an inspiration in my work. What are you pulling your references from? Tiff says, one thing about my practice is that if I do a lot of things that are super hard with the materiality, I like to soften things up. Or if it's too machined, I want to see the hand the next time. So if it's hard, she makes it soft. If it's soft, it makes it hard. She balances. So that's why I really like being interdisciplinary, using more than one idea or more than one medium. Friends, you asked me what medium is. It just means different art supplies. D says, what's an example of being able to see the hand in a work that is otherwise fabricated? Probably the hair work. It's all that, all the hand. Whether we know the material, we probably created or done somebody's hair, so we know that rhythm, that technique. Dream says, did you also work with the stylist to make I've Got Bundles, I Got Flued Out? I did that with my girl, Mo Alhad. She's like a sister and has been my personal hairstylist for years, so it made sense for me to have the same relationship embedded in the work. It's about the labor. It's about the relationship. It's about the familial, like, closeness. You don't really let anybody touch your head. That's totally why I made, don't touch my hair piece because it's just really inappropriate. That also has to do with boundaries and objectification. It has to do with Black girls walking around with elaborate hairstyles and people thinking it's an invitation to cross a particular personal boundary, right? Tiff says, it's the audacity. Just because you're attracted to something, it's probably going to happen the rest of my life because I'm not going to adorn myself, No, it happens to all of us. It's a violation. Who are the people that actually get to touch your head? It's moms, aunties, grandmas, your lover, whoever you're married to. Dream says, speaking of caregivers, whoops, my bad. Oh, let's hope that doesn't start talking. Baby Bing is a piece that is about girls who are easily erased. You give it that scale, you can give it the elegance in a way that it's laid out. Can you talk to us about Baby Bling that's important to you about it? Tiff says, what's special about that room, because it's in the DIA, is that it's an emotional room. It's the familial that comes up, the familiar. It literally transports you to being a child because that's how you're interacting with those objects. So telling our story, but then it's also creating a very specific portraits of the time in life. It's intentional. It's like love. The entire time we've been talking about Detroit, but we haven't talked about Detroit yet. When I went to New York, I realized just how much we had here. All right, I don't know who's saying this, but I'm assuming it's let's just read it. Those of us who leave Detroit become ambassadors. We're repping Detroit partly because people are talking about us in this negative way. I haven't heard anybody talking negative. So we triple down from being Detroit. But what happens by the time you're in high school is that we see people, Black folk, and this is heartbreaking to me, self-deporting. So we end up having the 1990s is Black Flight. Can you talk about what it was like? Okay, it is the journalist. And I know it affected the West Side way after my side of town. I'm from the East Side, but can you talk a bit about watching us move to the suburbs and kind of give up the city in some ways? Tiff says, my family stayed in the D the whole time, but I did go to high school in Farmington Hills. It's really interesting when you see all of these developments and change things. Dream says, I asked the question because you're very much investing in Detroit. You want to own back to scale, large scale buildings. Can you talk about why? What part of legacy or what part of investing in Detroit has becoming so central to your practice as an entrepreneur, as an artist entrepreneur? She says, I'm just going to try and connect quite a few dots to put in perspective. When I went to Cranbrook Academy of Art, I was the only Black woman on campus and the first Black woman to graduate. All right. From the metalsmithing department. And everybody loved Detroit. It was Detroit this, Detroit that, but ain't nobody really been Detroit. The conversation was becoming more about outsiders than becoming about who'd been in Detroit the whole time, creating and doing and just holding the stuff down. And so I was asking myself, where do people actually create? Where are the Black creative spaces? In 2017, when I purchased my first property 10 blocks from where I grew up, I thought about what would have happened if I had seen someone who was dedicated to a practice so near my house. What would happen if I'd seen somebody building large sculptures or welding, or making jewelry? I'm pretty sure it would have sparked something in me sooner. We talked about the divestment of Detroit, but Detroit was producing so much talent. That's why I need to build my own institution in Detroit. Yeah, give it up for that. Backstage, we were talking about people who didn't do a lot to protect their legacy. Prince died without a will. Aretha Franklin died with a handwritten will stuffed in the couch. And Aretha's from here. Prince, I thought, was from Minnesota. At a certain point, an artist has to begin to take stock, to start cataloging. How are you thinking about legacy? I think about it quite often, and I think half of it has to do with my family's roots in dealing with real estate. I want these things to last outside of my lifetime. That's the level of preservation of the black space that I would like to see. We need a Tiff Massey sculpture park, don't you think? So what do you guys think of that, having it called the Tiff Massey Sculpture Park? Who are some of the sculptures, and particularly artists in public spaces, that inspire you? I don't know if it's inspiration or if it's who I want to become for next. I think it's how you're inspired too. If you're like, oh, I think I can do that, I would say Richard Sierra. And a person who's not a sculptor, Izzy Miyake. Can you say more about Izzy, the clothing designer, and all of the pleats? Is that about the movement? It's really the manipulation of the material. I really like materiality. And so I think of Sky Retker because she told me she wants to grow up and be a fashion designer. That's why I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I refuse to cut myself off from learning about a new material. Another person who I went from is Anish Kapoor, because I'm like, I can do shiny and big. That's hilarious that you're like, come for. Yeah, that's what I feel like. That's what I was asked to do, even in the DIA exhibition, respond to our collection. What do you want me to respond to? Let's go. And the study, I think I put this in the right order. Let's see. 19. $22. No, I didn't. All right. Well, I didn't read it. I knew that might have been something, but I'm going to keep going with the flow. So, and to study metalsmithing and jewelry, did not see any. I think we read this. Yeah, we read this. Let me just get rid of that. All right. And so, again, we are talking about, let's go. She's excited to talk. Here we go. You named one of the artists. Who's the second artist in the DIA that you respond to? Louise Nevelson. It's her use of black. And also, I can tell that it's her use of big. Her art is big, and her art is geometric shaped as well. If I were to ask you to respond to two artists, and if I wasn't constrained by who was in the DIA's permanent collection, who would you? Anish Kapoor all day. Richard Sierra, Anish Kapoor. Richard Sierra, second, Anish Kapoor. Just the use of reflection and how anything is so shiny. It's not necessarily about the object to me. It's the reality about the viewer. I utilize mirrors quite often, where there isn't a separation of the viewer and object. And Miss K, personally, if you ever see my artwork, it has metallic underpainting because I like that sparkle texture effect too. Dream says, you do that in the What's Up Doe piece. Let me get a drink. You put us all inside of a jewelry box, which you talk about being connected to going to the jewelry in Greenfield with your dad. I'm going to mention a place and would love to hear your first thoughts. Belle Isle. Belle Isle, y'all, is getting quite weak. You guys should be really mad, actually. Belle Isle is basically like a family member. It's probably also like, what up, doe? Like being a hub to check in and stuff. I remember when they took Belle Isle from us and they had the first fireworks show. I've never seen anything like it before. It was like people were parked on the medians on the freeway, every empty parking spot, to basically try to have something back that they were never going to get. And they were just trying to participate in this ritual that we would do and always be accessible to. We grew up not knowing what it is to be denied a public space. Black people occupying public space in Detroit was a given, and it's not until you move away to other places that you realize that's not always the case. But I guess I should be asking you what I imagine folks you would want to know. There's absolutely the what's next. What are you thinking about? And what in terms of your practice? And where do you want to go next? I'm all about speaking things into existence. I doubt it's going to happen in the next 2 years, but I want to represent United States at the Venice Biennial. And see, Miss Kay has international artwork too, but see, she has to pay for carrying that heavy stuff. Yes, I want that. But before that, I need to get these buildings online and make sure y'all get that Tiff Massey Sculptural Park. Where would you want to have the sculptural park in Detroit? At my building at Wyoming and Puritan. So guys, look it up. It's something that I'm working on, along with creating my first bronze and WNBA team for an NBA team. And I have a commission that's in my works for Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. They're building a new library downtown, and I will be the only artist outside of Romare Bearden, another famous artist I've taught you about, who was commissioned while he was alive to create a piece for the library as well. See, I'm always saying usually you're not alive when you get to be famous. Wow, I didn't know that. Are there materials that you haven't worked with that you want to? Ceramics, more glass. So clay, she wants to do clay and glass. I know it's such an individual journey, but what do you tell young folks, you guys, when they ask you about the possibility of a future as an artist, particularly young Detroit folks? So she's talking to you now, friends. I usually say you have to want it. You have to want to eat, live, and breathe being an artist. There are going to be times when people aren't looking. And that's when you actually need to do that work. You have to take yourself seriously. So believe in yourself. If you don't take yourself seriously, how do you expect someone else to? So Martin Luther King's first rule, believe in yourself. Finally, you can talk to us about your parents. You talked about your father in the cars. I know that your mother, even though you were installing this show, was a big part of the process. She says, I have basically 2 sets of parents, my family, but then also Detroit and its neighborhoods. I don't know how old I was before I realized that my neighbors were not related to me because they were all aunts and uncles. I had another grandma down the street, so growing up in Black Detroit was very familiar. I love that about your work and interconnectedness, but being right there here in Detroit. Thank you so much for this beautiful exhibition, 7 Mile Livernois. Thank you. Okay, so here is the artwork. These are plates at the end of a book. They always call it the color pictures plates. All right, and we see that this one was the one called What Up Doe? All right, What Up Doe? And then we have, so I want you to bounce back and forth to be like, all right, what was What Up Doe about? And maybe you could tell me in the private chat. This one is called, this is Donald Judd's Untitled on the right, and Tiff Massey's What Up Doe? No. Judd is the green one. All right. Look at that, friends. I was going to give you a new picture. I forgot. This is the one going into your childhood. It's those hair bands. And over on the right, it is those other hair bands as well. All right. This one's I Got Bricks. Here it is. I remember way back then when. And here's Louise Nevelson. All right, so you can sort of see these are all different artworks from Louise Nevelson and who she was inspired by. All right, Mark Rothko, she also mentioned she was inspired by somewhere, and these are his artworks, just rectangles. Oh, there it is. And so this one is called Everyday Arsenal. This one is called 39 Reasons I'm Not Playing. And so it's that enlarged necklace. Here's I think this is the hair. All right, where she was talking about different hairstyles. This is called Quilt Code and Black Everything. So that looks a lot like Nevelson. There's a close-up of it. All right, this is called Fulani. This is called Facet. Remember they were talking about facets, and that does look like the bracelet. I think it was the bracelet, and it sits a different way every time. 39 Reasons I'm Not Playing. She can move that around as well. Everyday Arsenal. And the checklist. All right. And here is a picture of herself, as we saw. And so I hope you enjoyed. There's the book. Now, if you want to make an artwork like that, I've enclosed this video, and you can watch that. If you really love art history, you can find out more. This is Louise Nevelson, and she talks about her assemblages. And here is a long video about our artist, Tiff Massey. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please check it out. Thank you for reading along with me. Love you guys. And I'm hoping that you're going to be able, after we hear this, to write a little bit about what sticks out. Like, what do you like about her? What don't you like about her? And what has helped you understand art a little bit more through this deep dive about Tiff Massey. All right, my friends, thank you so much for being here. Love you guys.